We all want to be better, smarter, stronger, healthier, more successful. But our lack of discipline prevents us from sticking to these things in the long term. Most of us are on and off with our habits, starting when we feel motivated and then quitting when that bout of motivation ends. That is why today we are going to talk about how to solve this problem of self-discipline. How to do the things that we say we are going to do despite facing resistance, but without being toxic or shaming, hating, or guilting ourselves into doing so. Rather, we are going to take a more gentle, loving approach to discipline so that we can actually make it effortless. This is everything we're going to cover in the video, so make sure you hit subscribe and like if you are new to the channel, and make sure you stick around till the end because I'll be sharing a list of daily practices that can help you get started in the right direction. Why do we struggle with discipline? Most people believe that discipline is being able to do something that you don't want to do. Now imagine for a second that you are kidnapped and the kidnapper asks you to do all of these chores like cleaning, cooking, and sleeping in the corner. Are you doing these things because you're disciplined? Or are you doing these because you're a prisoner and your survival depends on doing them? The more you slave on like this, the more you will resent the kidnapper and try everything in your power to break free. Most of us have a similar relationship to discipline, where we are the kidnappers and our internal intrinsic desires are the slaves that are trying to break free. We struggle with discipline because most of the things that we think we have to do in order to live a happier, more fulfilling life are not aligned with the things that we want to do. And what are these things that we want to do? Scroll Instagram, party all night, play video games, hang out with friends, eat junk food, not do the work, not do the assignment, right? Now we are intrinsically motivated to do these things because they are enjoyable, they are fun, they give us that hit of dopamine and instant pleasure. The problem that most of us face today is that we have trained our brains into constantly seeking these cheap hits of dopamine. We have trained our brains to focus on this instant gratification continuously again and again. And in doing so, we step farther and farther away from discipline. And the more we keep working towards these, the more difficult it becomes to get back on track. So, how do we break out of this loop? How do we untrain our brain from relying on these cheap hits of dopamine? And how do we train ourselves to become disciplined? Start by reframing what discipline means to you. Most of us have a toxic relationship with discipline, like we've already established. But what if, instead of shaming ourselves and guilting ourselves into doing things, we started thinking of discipline as a form of self-love? Think of yourself as a parent. And now imagine how you would approach this with your own child. You want them to focus on their health and their well-being and improving their life because you love them and you want what is best for them. Why don't you want that for yourself? Self-discipline is self-love in action. And when you start to think of discipline this way, it becomes a lot easier to stay on track. For example, when I was initially trying to lose weight and stick to my diet just based on my willpower, it never worked. There was so much shame associated with it. There was a lot of guilt for not being able to stick to my practices. And there was this constant battle in my head because I was trying to turn myself into an obedient slave. But when I reframe this to, I exercise and I eat clean because I love my body and I respect my body. I work hard because I deserve the best things in life and I want to give them to myself. The narrative changed completely. It became a lot more enjoyable and a lot more sustainable. And the beauty about approaching discipline as a form of self-love is that the more you do it, the stronger this loop becomes. The more you love yourself, the more disciplined you want to be. And the more disciplined you are, the more it fuels your self-love. This happens because your sense of purpose, fulfillment, and joy now comes from doing this instead of relying on the cheap hits of dopamine like eating junk food and watching too much TV. Step 2, find your competing interest. What do you find more fun, more valuable, more enjoyable than scrolling on your phone and being lazy all the time? Now, when you're first trying to figure this out, it can be difficult because if you have been stuck in this loop forever, you might think that there is nothing more enjoyable than scrolling on your phone and hanging out with your friends and constantly watching TV. If that is the case, I want you to think of the cost-benefit analysis. Ask yourself that if you were to continue doing whatever you are doing right now, what would your life look like in the next 5 years? And then on the next page, if you were to get disciplined, what would your life look like then in the next 5 years? And I want you to put these side by side and compare. In most cases, you will realize that the benefits of discipline far outweigh the costs of discipline and far outweigh the benefits of instant gratification. The cost of discipline is that you are giving up small periods of instant gratification. But the benefit is that you become healthier, richer, more successful, and happier than you currently are. On the other hand, if you look at your lazy phase and your instant gratification phase right now, you will find that the costs of this phase outweigh the benefits by large. The benefits of this phase are that it is giving you instant pleasure. It is making you feel good in the moment. But the cost is that your physical health, your mental health, your financial well-being, and almost all other areas of your life will become much worse 5 years down the line till these things no longer give you pleasure. So with this exercise, we're basically trying to align our intrinsic and our extrinsic motivation. Our intrinsic motivation is our internal drive for doing things. And if we can fundamentally understand the benefits of discipline, it makes us internally motivated to become more disciplined. And when that happens, we are a lot more likely to stay on track because our internal compass is now aligned with our external motivations. Okay, now that you're here, step 3 is to make discipline a part of your identity. Jai Ho Shri James Clear for bringing this concept to the public. He basically says that people act in accordance with what they believe about themselves. A beautiful example of this is Shah Rukh Khan. He believes that he is the king of Bollywood and he works, acts and speaks exactly in accordance with that identity. And this stands true for discipline as well. You are more likely to be disciplined and to stay on track if you believe you are a disciplined person. So if you're constantly saying things like, I'm lazy and I'm not disciplined, no points for guessing how you are going to act. Changing your identity starts with changing the way that you speak to yourself and about yourself. You can do this by speaking affirmations in the mirror. You can do this by journaling. You can also do this by constantly correcting yourself every time you make this mistake. But one of my favorite ways to start is to describe a day in the life of your ideal self or the life of your most disciplined self and answer as many questions about this person as you can. But make sure you write them in the present tense. Right? So what do they do for a living? How does their day look like? What do they do from morning to evening? What is their routine like? What do they eat? How do they dress? Everything, all of the questions that you can answer about your most disciplined self, write them down. And I want you to do this exercise every single month till you get to a point where your current identity aligns with this one. And when you're doing this exercise every single month, after you've written down the answers, I want you to sit and visualize yourself as this person. It can sound stupid, it can feel very stupid to do in the beginning, and you might face a lot of internal resistance while doing so, but go ahead and do it anyways, and you're going to thank me for it. Step 4 is creating a system to make discipline automatic. Now, this system has 4 parts: creating an action rulebook, getting started, removing friction, and rewarding yourself. Any sort of habit that you create in life follows this basic structure. And if you've read Atomic Habits, you know this, but I'm going to try and explain this with examples. Number 1, creating an action rulebook. Now, when you're working on changing your identity, it can feel overwhelming. Well, because 1, things are changing, and 2, because you might feel like this is something that you have to do for life, and that is a challenging thing to imagine. So, create a rulebook. All of the different things that you think your disciplined self should do, write them down in a list on a piece of paper and put it up on your bulletin board. Then, get realistic. Figure out which of these things can you incorporate into your current schedule, into your current lifestyle without burning out. I would suggest starting with 2 things at a time, 2 or 3 maximum. Now, if you can go ahead and incorporate these 2 things into your life seamlessly right away without any friction, great. But if you can't, I want you to start with the smallest viable action. Let's say the 2 things that you've picked are walking every day and studying more consistently, right? What is the smallest viable action that you can take for both of these things? For walking, it can probably be walking 10 minutes a day. And for the studying one, it can be going to the library every day. Now, for the next few weeks, I want you to focus on doing just these 2 things and forget everything else that you've written so far. Just these 2 things, walking 10 minutes and going to the library. Whether you go and study afterwards is not a concern. You just have to make sure that you get to the library every single day. That's it. You could in fact stack your habits and walk to the library, and that covers your 10 minutes of walking and going to the library. And if you continue to do this for the next 20 days, you are already 1 step closer to becoming your most disciplined itself. Then once you're able to do this for a month on end, you want to increase the frequency of doing these things and then slowly incorporating more things from your rule book till you're able to get to a place where you feel self-disciplined. It's okay if you fall off the wagon. It's okay if you fall short. Just get up, get back on the horse again and do it anyways. Building discipline is like any other habit. The more we do it, the stronger it becomes. We are retraining our brain how to get disciplined and take it away from all of that training that we have given it so far. This happens because of something called neural plasticity, which is our brain's ability to form new neural connections. So each time you take a disciplined action, you are strengthening that neural pathway till over time that action becomes very easy to take. Step 2 of this is getting up and getting started. Now, getting started for most people is a lot harder than sustaining an action that they're already doing, which is why it is very difficult for you to break out of that loop of laziness and start taking action, because your body would much rather sustain being lazy. This happens because of a thing called resistance. Your body wants to continue in the state that it is in. Getting up and changing that state requires effort, and your brain does not want to do that. So you need a system in place to get started. For me, this system, when it comes to work, is watching a short motivational video and making myself a cup of coffee. And when I combine both of these activities, my brain is already conditioned to take that as a cue to start working. And that puts me in work mode and I start working. Another example, if you are struggling to wake up and go to the gym, you get a trainer who calls you till you get up and get to the gym. One of my cousin brothers had actually tried this and this really worked for him because he had the hardest time waking up in the morning. So he hired a trainer and that trainer would hound him every single day till he got to the gym. And that made it a very consistent habit for him. Similarly, if you struggle waking up in the morning, you could install an alarm clock on your phone that does not shut off until you solve a math problem, for example. So I'm going to leave the creativity up to you. But whatever task it is that you're trying to accomplish, you need to figure out how you will get into that zone where you are just getting started and getting into momentum. Step 3 of creating your system is removing friction, which is basically putting a process in place that helps you overcome any obstacle that you're going to face. One strategy that you can use here is called implementation intentions, which basically means that you have an if-then plan for your obstacles. If this happens, then I will do this. Let me give you an example. Let's say that you've decided to go to the gym every day at 9 a.m. But what if you are not able to wake up early enough to go to the gym at 9 a.m.? Then you are going to go to the gym in the evening after office. Now, what if you get stuck late at work in office? Then you are going to download a 15-minute workout video from YouTube and either do it after office, within office itself, or come back home and do it then. You see, you account for obstacles that you are invariably going to face. These are going to come up in your life because life happens. So you already account for, if this happens, then I am going to do this. This strategy was introduced by this German psychologist called Peter Gollwitzer, who found that if you account for the obstacles that you're going to face, you are more likely to stay on track. Another strategy that you can use to remove this friction is something called loss aversion. Now, personally, this doesn't work for me because I don't relate to it and this is not how my brain functions, but it does for a lot of people, which is why I'm including it in this video. Loss aversion basically states that the pain of losing something is twice as powerful as the pleasure of gaining something. For example, you would be a lot more affected if you lost 1,000 rupees as opposed to gaining 1,000 rupees. So what you can basically do is set up a cash bet with a friend or online where if you don't do a particular thing, you end up losing money. For example, if you don't finish your exercise goal for the day, your friend will take 1,000 rupees from you and tear it up or flush it down the toilet. So there's no chance of you ever getting it back. And that can be an incredibly powerful motivator. Just make sure that whatever you are losing is painful enough. And the final step of creating your system is setting rewards in place. Having milestones in your journey and tying those to rewards, to actual tangible physical rewards, is very essential for long-term progress. This basically ties in with our dopamine reward system. When you tie disciplined activity with a reward, you're signaling to your brain that being disciplined is inherently fun. It's inherently enjoyable. And that's why I want to do more of it. What that reward is going to be is something that I leave to you because different people enjoy different things. When I started my healthy eating journey, my reward was a cheat meal at the end of the week, and it was very, very helpful in helping me maintain that streak of eating clean 6 days a week. Similarly, I had number goals when I started YouTube, and having those goals in place made it a lot easier for me to stick to my progress. And keep in mind that after you continue doing this for a while, the results you get out of your discipline actually become the reward and they fuel further discipline. Coming to step number 5, optimizing your environment to reflect your new identity. There is enough psychological research done that tells us that our environment directly impacts our identity, our motivation, and our sense of discipline. If you hang out with disciplined people, you are more likely to be disciplined. If you hang out with indisciplined people, guess what is going to rub off on you? So going back to the drawing board, ask yourself what your environment looks like for you as a disciplined person. Or what does your physical environment look like? What are the kind of people you're surrounded by? And then act step by step to change your environment so that it reflects this identity. For example, if your disciplined self exercises regularly, you will have a lot of fit friends, you will have a gym membership, you will have your clothes laid out the night before, you will have your workout downloaded, all of that jazz, right? If your disciplined self does focused work, your desk will not have distractions, you will put your phone on silent when you're working, you will not be surrounded by other distracting elements, things like that. If your disciplined self eats healthy, there will be no junk food in your house. When you go grocery shopping, you shop for healthy food. I actually personally do this and I'm so proud of myself that there is zero junk food in my house at the moment. The more you optimize your environment to match your identity, the easier it becomes to stay disciplined. And keep in mind that this is a gradual process, not an overnight one. Now, everything that we've talked about so far is to get you in the momentum, to get you started with discipline. But what if you start strong and then life gets in the way? What do you do then? Then you create a system to sustain discipline. This step is about ensuring that you don't burn out because discipline can be exhausting because it's not our default setting. And this is going to look different for everyone. I, for example, am an able-bodied, unmarried person with very little responsibilities besides taking care of myself. And so I have a lot of privilege and things are easier for me. On the other hand, things might be hard for you. Your family conditions might not be conducive, you might have kids or you might have very long working hours, and in that case, you will need a lot more time for rest and recovery. But whatever your situation might be, these next 4 steps are something that you can adopt and optimize for your particular situation, right? The first is separating your self-worth from your discipline. Often when we fall off track from any habit that we're trying to build, including discipline, we can get into a shame spiral. But you're not a bad person for falling off the wagon. You are not inherently lazy just because things didn't work out. You need to give yourself room for error, for mistakes, and for learning from those mistakes. Self-compassion is the only way to ensure that you remain motivated in the long run. If you beat yourself up about it every single time you fall off the wagon, you are always going to be demotivated. And you're never going to want to do it again to avoid those feelings of shame and guilt. The second thing you want to do is treat discipline like a science experiment where you create a hypothesis about a particular thing that you want to be disciplined about. And then you test that hypothesis out, see what works, see what doesn't, double down on the things that are working, and then eliminate the things that are not working. When you approach any habit, including discipline like this, like a science experiment, you are basically treating failure as feedback. And when you do that, it takes away all of those negative emotions we often associate with failure. And when that happens, it becomes so much easier to stay on track. The third thing you want to do is make it enjoyable. And this is separate from the rewards that we were talking about earlier. This just means that within the actions that you're taking to be more disciplined, choosing actions that are inherently more enjoyable for you. For example, if your goal is exercising, but you don't enjoy going to the gym, forcing yourself to show up at the gym every day is not going to be very sustainable. But on the other hand, if you pick an activity that you find fun, maybe it's going for a walk with your best friend, maybe it's joining a dance class, and if you do those activities, you are a lot more likely to stick to your goal, to stick to your path, to stick to your track. The end goal remains the same, just the process of reaching that end goal is a lot more fun for you, making it easier to stick to it for as long as you want. Finally, you want to seek support from the people around you. A lot of people will have you believe that discipline is this thing that you have to do in isolation, but that is not the case. We don't live in isolation, we don't work in isolation. So when we look at discipline, we have to look at it in relation with everything else in our life, including the people in our life. And that means that when things get tough, having a support system can go a really, really long way. Whenever you hear any success story of anybody in any field where discipline has gotten them somewhere, you will see that their family, their spouse, their team members have actually all supported them to help them reach where they are. So ask your partner, your friends, your family to help keep you accountable. For instance, since I got on this weight loss journey, I have asked my family members to not comment on my looks and to not comment on my weight, because I am trying to maintain a positive mindset. I'm trying to manifest things into my life. And when somebody becomes negative or when somebody negatively comments on your looks, it can really mess with that thought process. Similarly, I have asked my friends to not force me to eat out. And similarly, I have asked my partner for accountability in the gym. So go ahead, figure out who these people are who can support you on this journey, and then don't be afraid to ask for help. And this gets us to the final part of the video, a few daily practices that can help you kickstart this discipline journey. The first thing is daily affirmations for discipline. I am displaying all of the ones that I use on the screen, so you can screenshot this page or pause it and note these down. And I practice these right in the morning when I'm doing my journaling practice. I will write them down along with the other affirmations that I have. Using affirmations basically shifts your identity and your narrative towards yourself. The next thing I do is keeping my physical health in check. Your mental health relies hugely on your physical health. So drinking enough water, eating nutrient-dense food, taking my supplements, doing some sort of physical movement every single day. Yes, I know that it takes discipline to get here, but if you can get started with these right off the bat, it can really aid your journey. The third thing I do is creating weekly and daily plans for my day, right? So I sit down every single Sunday and I jot down what I need to get done during the week. This includes both things related to my personal goals and my work goals, and I get an overview of what is it that I need to get done in the week. And the second thing I do is every morning I sit down and I create a to-do list of the tasks that I need to accomplish in the day. This just keeps my headspace very clear and makes it a lot easier to stay on track. It's like meal prepping, so that everything is in front of you, you know what to get done. So even if you fall off the wagon here and there, you can always check this and get back on track. The next thing that I do is I use this app called Habit on my phone for habits that I'm trying to build or habits that got broken somehow and I'm trying to rebuild. And you basically input all of these habits, it sends you daily reminders, and then you can just check them off once you've done those habits. And finally, I have an accountability partner who I discuss my day with. So we exchange notes on what we plan to do for the day, and then at the end of the day, we discuss how much we got done. And when we both do this, it keeps us both accountable. So just as a summary, this is everything that we covered in the video today. And I also have homework for you. So go ahead and do a cost-benefit analysis of your current lifestyle versus your disciplined lifestyle in the next 5 years. And don't forget to check out this video next, because YouTube suggests that you're going to love it. And I'm going to see you guys very, very soon with the next one. Bye.